The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus pushed his cart down the empty hallway of Lincoln Elementary. His worn sneakers squeaked against the polished linoleum, the only sound breaking the after-hour silence. At 38, he moved with a quiet precision that suggested more than his custodian uniform revealed. He paused outside classroom 3B, hearing voices that shouldn't be there. Through the small window, he spotted 3 older boys surrounding a smaller child near the back wall. The smaller boy rocked slightly, his hands covering his ears as the bullies laughed. Marcus had seen this before. His own daughter, Emma, faced similar challenges, though her autism manifested differently. The protective instinct that had kept his unit alive in Afghanistan now surged through his chest. The lead bully, probably a 6th grader, shoved the boy's shoulder. That's when Marcus moved. His hand found the door handle with the same steady calm he'd once used to clear hostile buildings. The hallway suddenly felt smaller, more tactical. Before we continue this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe protecting vulnerable children is something that resonates in your community too. Marcus stepped inside, his presence immediately shifting the room's energy. The bullies turned, expecting to intimidate another adult. Instead, they met eyes that had seen real danger and weren't impressed by playground cruelty. The 3 boys froze as Marcus entered, his custodian cart forgotten in the hallway. He didn't raise his voice or make threats. Instead, he simply stood there, shoulders square, hands relaxed at his sides. 20 years of military training had taught him that presence spoke louder than words. The boy on the floor looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Marcus noticed the telltale signs immediately. The repetitive hand movements, the way he avoided eye contact, the careful arrangement of pencils on his desk. This child was like Emma. The lead bully, a stocky kid with too much confidence, stepped forward. "Hey, janitor man, this isn't your business." Marcus tilted his head slightly, the same movement that had once made insurgents reconsider their life choices. "It became my business when you decided to corner someone half your size in my building." His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who'd commanded soldiers in combat zones. The boys shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware they were dealing with something beyond their understanding. The autistic boy, still covering his ears, whispered numbers in sequence. Marcus recognized the self-soothing behavior. He crouched slowly, maintaining distance to avoid overwhelming the child. "What's your name, son?" Marcus asked gently. "Tommy," came the barely audible response. "I was just waiting for my dad. He's coming to get me." The bullies exchanged glances, sensing their opportunity slipping away. But Marcus had positioned himself between them and Tommy with tactical precision, creating a protective barrier without seeming aggressive. The rumble of a motorcycle engine echoed through the empty school parking lot, growing louder as it approached the building. Marcus felt the vibration through the floor before he heard the distinctive Harley-Davidson growl. The bully's eyes widened with recognition. Heavy boots echoed down the hallway, each step deliberate and measured. The classroom door opened, revealing a man who filled the frame completely. Steele Rodriguez stood 6'4", with graying hair pulled back in a ponytail and arms covered in intricate tattoos. The Hell's Angels patch on his leather vest caught the fluorescent light. His dark eyes swept the room, taking in the scene instantly. 3 boys backed against the wall, his son Tommy still on the floor, and a custodian positioned protectively between them. "Tommy, you okay, Mijo?" Steele's voice carried surprising gentleness as he addressed his son. Tommy looked up, relief flooding his features. "Dad, these boys were being mean, but he helped me." He pointed toward Marcus. Steele's attention shifted to the custodian, who hadn't moved from his protective stance. Most people cowered when Steele entered a room. This man simply nodded respectfully, showing neither fear nor false bravado. "You the one who looked out for my boy?" Steele asked. Marcus straightened slightly, just doing what any decent person would do. The bullies seized their chance, scrambling toward the door. Steele stepped aside, letting them pass while keeping his focus on the man who'd protected his son. There was something familiar in the custodian's bearing, something that reminded Steele of his own military days. Steele helped Tommy gather his scattered papers while Marcus straightened the overturned desk. The simple act revealed more about both men than words could express. Neither rushed, both moved with practiced efficiency. "You military?" Steele asked quietly, watching how Marcus secured the classroom with unconscious precision. Marcus paused, his hand stilling on the desk surface. "Was. Special Forces. 3 tours in Afghanistan before." He gestured vaguely at his custodian uniform. "Marines, 2 tours Iraq," Steele replied with understanding. "Lost my squad leader to an IED. Came home different." Tommy finished organizing his pencils by color, a ritual that brought him comfort. Steele watched his son with infinite patience. The fierce biker transformed into a devoted father. "Tommy's mom couldn't handle his diagnosis," Steele continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Said she didn't sign up for this. Been just us for 4 years now." Marcus nodded, recognizing the familiar weight of single parenthood. "My Emma's on the spectrum too. Lost my wife in a car accident 2 years ago. Been working whatever jobs pay the bills since I got back stateside." The 2 veterans stood in comfortable silence, understanding passing between them. Both had traded military careers for the harder mission of raising special needs children alone. Both carried invisible wounds alongside their fierce protective instincts. Steele extended a weathered hand. "Name's Steele Rodriguez. And this is Tommy." "Marcus Williams," he replied, accepting the firm handshake that sealed an unexpected connection between 2 warriors turned fathers. The Iron Wolves clubhouse sat on the outskirts of town, a converted warehouse that had housed 3 generations of brotherhood. Steele parked his Harley beside 24 others, their chrome catching the afternoon sun. Inside, the familiar smell of motor oil and leather mixed with coffee and cigarette smoke. "Church is called to order," announced Razor, the club president, his gravelly voice cutting through the chatter. The patch holders gathered around a scarred oak table that had witnessed countless decisions. Steele cleared his throat. "Got something to share about yesterday." He recounted the school incident, describing how a custodian had stepped up to protect Tommy without knowing who his father was. "Just some school janitor?" asked Bulldog, the sergeant-at-arms, skeptically. "Special Forces. 3 tours Afghanistan. Lost his wife, raising an autistic daughter alone." Steele's words carried weight in the room full of veterans. Murmurs of respect rippled through the gathering. These men understood sacrifice, understood the brotherhood that transcended blood relations. Half the club members were former military, drawn together by shared experiences that civilians couldn't comprehend. "What's his situation?" Razor asked, leaning forward with interest. "Working custodial jobs, barely making ends meet. Good man doing whatever it takes to provide for his kid." Steele's voice held admiration. "Reminded me of us when we first got back, before we found family here." The president nodded slowly. In their world, loyalty was currency, and protecting someone's child was the highest form of respect. Word would spread quickly through their network of chapters across 3 states. Principal Henderson paced behind her desk, her face flushed with indignation as Marcus stood before her Monday morning. The weekend had given the rumor mill plenty of time to work, and concerned parents have been calling since dawn. "Mr. Williams, I've received multiple reports about your involvement with motorcycle gang members on school property," she said, her voice sharp with accusation. Marcus kept his expression neutral. "I intervened in a bullying situation, ma'am. The child's father came to collect him. That's the extent of it. That's not what parents are saying. They're talking about Hell's Angels, Mr. Williams. Drug dealers and criminals." Henderson's voice rose. "This is a family school. We can't have that element associated with our staff." Through the office window, Marcus could see other parents dropping off their children, some casting suspicious glances toward the building. The whispers had started the moment he'd clocked in that morning. "I protected a child with special needs," Marcus said quietly. "I'd do it again." Henderson's jaw tightened. "Your personal opinions about justice don't matter here. What matters is this school's reputation. Parents are threatening to pull their children if we don't address this situation." Marcus felt the familiar weight of judgment, the same dismissive tone he'd faced since leaving the military. Employers who saw his resume gap and made assumptions. Neighbors who watched him struggle with Emma's meltdowns and whispered about his parenting. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" he asked. "Distance yourself from this family. Completely. Or we'll have to reconsider your employment here." Tommy waited by the school's side entrance every afternoon now, clutching his backpack while other children ran past him toward waiting cars. Marcus had started timing his cleaning route to coincide with pickup, offering the boy a quiet space away from the crowds. "My dad says you were a soldier," Tommy said one afternoon, arranging his colored pencils in a perfect rainbow pattern on the bench beside him. "I was," Marcus replied, emptying a nearby trash can with measured movements. "A long time ago." Tommy looked up briefly, making the fleeting eye contact that came so rarely for him. "I memorized all the state capitals and the periodic table. Want to hear?" For the next 10 minutes, Tommy recited facts with photographic precision, his voice gaining confidence with each successful recall. Marcus listened, recognizing the brilliant mind trapped behind social barriers that others mistook for limitation. "You're smart, Tommy. Really smart," Marcus said when the boy finished. "The other kids don't think so. They think I'm weird." Tommy's voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus crouched down, maintaining careful distance. "You know what I learned in the Army? Different doesn't mean less. Sometimes the soldiers who thought differently were the ones who saved everyone else." Tommy nodded solemnly, processing this new perspective. Steele's motorcycle rumbled into the parking lot, but for once the boy didn't immediately run to his father. Instead, he carefully packed his pencils and turned to Marcus. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "I'll be here," Marcus promised, unaware that his job hung by an increasingly thin thread. The attacks on Tommy escalated with calculated cruelty. The same three bullies, emboldened by the adult whispers about his father's reputation, cornered him in the bathroom during lunch. They flushed his homework down the toilet and knocked his carefully organized lunch onto the dirty floor. Marcus discovered Tommy 20 minutes later, sitting in the corner of the empty cafeteria, rocking back and forth while tears streamed down his face. The boy's routine had been shattered, his safe spaces violated. "They said my dad's a criminal," Tommy whispered. "They said you're going to get fired because you helped me." Marcus felt anger surge through his chest, the same protective rage that had once driven him through enemy fire to rescue wounded teammates. But this was different. This was a child bearing the weight of adult prejudices he couldn't understand. "Tommy, listen to me," Marcus said gently. "What people say about your dad, about me, that's not your burden to carry." But even as he spoke, Marcus saw Principal Henderson watching from the doorway, her expression disapproving. The message was clear. His association with Tommy was being monitored, documented, used as ammunition against him. By afternoon, Marcus overheard two teachers discussing his situation in the break room. Parents had formed a group demanding action. The school board was getting involved. His job, the only steady income he'd found since leaving the military, was slipping away because he'd chosen to protect a vulnerable child. That evening, Emma asked why he seemed so quiet. Marcus couldn't tell his daughter that doing the right thing might cost them their home. Principal Henderson summoned Marcus to her office Friday morning, a formal letter already prepared on her desk. The ultimatum was typed on official letterhead, each word carefully chosen to protect the school from legal liability. "Mr. Williams, effective immediately, you are prohibited from any non-essential interaction with the Rodriguez family. This includes conversations with the child beyond basic custodial duties." She slid the paper across her desk. "Sign this acknowledgement, and we can move past this unfortunate situation." Marcus read the document slowly. It essentially demanded he abandon Tommy, pretend the vulnerable child didn't exist, ignore any future bullying incidents. His signature would be a promise to let fear override compassion. "And if I refuse?" Marcus asked. Henderson's smile was thin and cold. "Then we'll be forced to terminate your employment for failure to maintain professional boundaries and creating a disruptive environment." Marcus thought of Emma, of the rent due next week, of the medical bills still accumulating from her therapy sessions. He thought of Tommy, waiting by the side entrance, trusting that someone would be there who saw his worth. He set the pen down without signing. I understand your position, ma'am, but that boy needs someone in his corner, and I won't abandon him because adults are scared of his father's leather jacket. Henderson's face hardened. Then you've made your choice, Mr. Williams. Clear out your locker by end of day. Marcus stood, his military bearing intact despite the crushing weight of unemployment looming ahead. Some battles were worth fighting, even when victory seemed impossible. Steele found out about Marcus's firing through Tommy, who came home confused and heartbroken that his only protector at school was gone. That evening, Steele made a phone call that would change everything. "Razor, I need you to run a full background check on Marcus Williams," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "The school fired him for helping my boy." Within hours, the Iron Wolves network had produced Marcus's complete military record. Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams, 75th Ranger Regiment, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star for valor. He'd saved 12 soldiers during a Taliban ambush, carrying wounded men to safety under heavy fire. His discharge papers showed an honorable service record cut short by family tragedy. The clubhouse fell silent as Razor read the details aloud. These weren't just accomplishments to the brotherhood of veterans around the table. They were sacred honors that demanded respect. "This man's a genuine American hero," Bulldog said quietly. "Lost his wife, raising a special needs kid alone, working whatever jobs he can find. And they fired him for protecting Tommy." Steele's jaw tightened. "He sacrificed his paycheck for my son. No man should face that choice alone." Razor leaned back his chair, processing the information. "What are you thinking, brother?" "I'm thinking it's time this town learned what real honor looks like," Steele replied. "And I'm thinking Marcus Williams deserves better than scrubbing floors for people who don't recognize a hero when they see one." The president nodded slowly. "Make the calls. Every chapter within 500 miles. It's time to ride." The disciplinary hearing was scheduled for Monday morning in the school board meeting room. Marcus sat alone at a small table, facing 5 board members and Principal Henderson. The termination paperwork lay spread before them like an indictment. "Mr. Williams, you're here to contest your dismissal," Board Chairman Phillips began formally. "However, given the disruptive nature of your association with known criminal elements," the rumble started low, like distant thunder. Then it grew louder, becoming a synchronized roar that shook the windows of the administrative building. Car alarms began wailing in the parking lot. Phillips stopped mid-sentence as the sound became unmistakable. Dozens of motorcycle engines, all arriving at once. Through the conference room windows, an incredible sight unfolded. Motorcycles filled every available space, stretching from the parking lot into the street. Leather-clad riders dismounted in perfect formation, their movements disciplined and coordinated. American flags flew from several bikes, alongside military service banners. Steele Rodriguez walked through the school's front doors, flanked by Razor and 20 other Iron Wolves officers. Behind them came riders from chapters across 3 states: Desert Demons, Thunder Road, Steel Cavalry. Veterans all, united in purpose. The board members sat frozen as 250 bikers filed quietly into the hallway outside the meeting room. No shouting, no threats, just an overwhelming presence of solidarity. Steele stepped into the doorway, his voice calm and respectful. "Board Chairman Phillips, we're here to discuss Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams. We believe there's been a serious misunderstanding about this man's character." Marcus stared in amazement as his sacrifice was answered by an army of brothers he'd never expected. Razor placed a manila folder on the conference table with quiet dignity. "Gentlemen, this is Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams's military record. 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star for valor. He saved 12 American soldiers under enemy fire in Afghanistan." The board members passed the documents with growing unease. Principal Henderson's face paled as she read the citations describing acts of heroism that dwarfed anything she'd ever witnessed. "This man," Steele continued, "lost his job for protecting my autistic son from bullies. He chose to defend a vulnerable child over his own financial security. That's the character you're questioning. Phillips cleared his throat nervously. We weren't aware of Mr. Williams's military background, but association policies remain. Association? Bulldog stepped forward, his own Purple Heart visible on his vest. 300 combat veterans in this hallway, sir. We associate with heroes. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the support surrounding him. These men, strangers a week ago, had ridden hundreds of miles to defend his honor. We're offering Sergeant Williams a position, Razor announced. Security consulting for veteran-owned businesses across our network. Full benefits, college fund for his daughter. He'll train other vets, help them transition to civilian careers. The transformation was immediate. Marcus wasn't a fired janitor anymore. He was Staff Sergeant Williams, decorated combat veteran, surrounded by brotherhood that recognized his true worth. If this story touched your heart, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, or if you've witnessed hidden heroes in your own community. Sometimes the most extraordinary people wear the humblest uniforms. Marcus smiled, finally seen for who he truly was.